Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining the panel discussion on navigating multi-cloud governance and its best practices and challenges. So we have today with us Mr. Meriar and Mr. Tejas, and we are going to kind of take them through the various challenges which typically enterprises face, and also kind of get their insights as to what they have and how they have dealt with the multi-cloud governance. And this session is enriching for all of you. My name is Sunil Palricha, and I'm the host for today. I am the Chief Digital Officer at Wizard Technology. And I have close to about 20 years of experience working with various large-size enterprises to kind of lead their digital transformation journey. So over to you, Meriar. So would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you're doing on your multi-cloud strategy, and give a little bit background about how would you kind of look at in 2023?
Yeah, thanks, Sunil, for setting the tone. I think in today's world, multi-cloud is looked at as a futuristic way how CIOs would look at deploying their infrastructure. And probably it's one of the most talked about and discussed topic today for all the CIOs and CTOs across the globe, not only in India. So I am Meriar Patel. I head digital solutions for a logistics company, which is G9 company, which is based out of Mumbai. We are global operators, and we operate under all the segments of the logistics and supply chain domain, namely being freight forwarding, warehousing, express logistics, 3PL operations, and many more. So for us, cloud constitutes almost 95% of our infrastructure strategy. And we believe that infrastructure should be agnostic in terms of where you are locating it. And that is where multi-cloud comes into picture. We work with various service providers in terms of managing our infrastructure and seeing that our uptimes are maximum to 99.9%. Achievements in terms of cloud would be the next area of discussion, which I will take it forward. Over to you, Sunil.
Yeah, thanks, Meriar. And what are the top key cloud infrastructure which you're using right now?
So if you look at it, hybrid cloud setups that I would operate on, I would not like to name them. But we operate with various service providers, mainly private cloud setups presently. We also work with SaaS-based platforms, global SaaS-based platforms. Again, I would not name them.
Yeah.
So the point of objective is that today, email constitutes one of the biggest cloud arena of operations, right? That is one area which I would like to talk about. The second is on applications on SaaS-based infrastructure. So that is something which we have recently done. I will also speak about that. We have some legacy setup which you also operate with a private cloud setup. So legacy requires care, ultra care in terms of how we manage, not only in terms of infrastructure, but also licensed product that operate over it. So we are happy to share that we are one of the pioneers in logistics industry who always believe and say that expand yourself in terms of how you want to deliver to your customers. The customers would be, one, your external customers whom you serve, and the second one will be your internal customers that you serve and help the customers, outside customers, to do better. So I think the customer story for us is going to be very, very important in terms of deploying cloud strategy.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Meriar. Over to you, Tejas.
Hi, my name is Tejas Shah, and I basically Prince Pipes and Fittings. So overall, managing the infra applications. So basically, core applications, which is my prioritize, which I look into, including ERPs. And obviously, one of the key aspect, or you can say the role, is cloud. So basically, if I want to say, we are 100% on cloud, excluding the local branch servers. But this is the overall key areas and expertise which I currently look into, with over 20 years of experience in various domains like education, finance, and now into manufacturing. And yes, this is about me.
Tejas. That's good. So moving on to about understanding how you guys have kind of implemented the cloud governance, right? I just wanted to kind of take it up with Maria that so when you are kind of building on various frameworks, right? How have you established a unified governance framework across this multi-cloud providers? Over to you, Maria.
Yeah, so Sunil, I think one of the pertinent questions which comes to our mind is that how to run true governance in terms of multi-cloud facet that we use. And before I go into and dig into the details of it, I think we need to understand the common multi-cloud governance challenges. That is very important. So there are many facets to a multi-cloud governance strategy. This needs not to be understood as in per se of looking at it as an overview. But I think one of the most critical parts that we try and ignore or take it for granted that when we operate on a cloud, there are certain things which automatically come to us as governance, but it is not so. I think one of the most important part is security. Multi-cloud governance adds new dimensions, new threats, and it needs very closed security governance. Pitching in, reducing the gaps, adding access control is very, very important. Where you can control your vulnerabilities and expose stoppage of sensitive data which can be accessed by external entity. Compliance is one of the most important tools. So the framework basically talks about that if you operate with, say, XYZ operator, what is the compliance that you are going to follow for a cloud services? The framework should also include a lot of documentation, support services, 24/7, obviously, when you operate on cloud service. The third thing is cost management. A lot of times you presume that one cost is available for everything that you implement in the cloud. So I feel that cost management is one of the most important parts. I've seen a SaaS-based operations looking at having no control on costs would be one of the biggest exposure when you try and look at it work completed a year and so and when the bill comes in. The fourth and the most critical part is the service level agreement, where you know that when you're going to sign up with a service partner, you have to deploy standardization matrices, restrictions, availability on the service level agreements. I think these are some of the basics that we want to talk about in terms of compliance on cloud, and governments actually has to take this into picture. So coming back to Sudhir, your question in terms of saying that how effective is the governance? So the point that we try to ignore is that we think that cloud is something which is the natural part of our engagement, but it has to be treated the same way as of putting up your own data center in-house. So we should not be able to ignore those areas. Look at those areas very, very well. Number two is which comes in as a piece of training, deployment, usage for internal and external users, which is also one of the most critical parts. And I feel that over a period of time, everybody is learning that stage. We thought that certain large cloud setups were not vulnerable to security, but that has now become a myth. It is not so. Everybody is sustainable. Everybody is affected to large attacks. And one needs to be really responsible in terms of mitigating those risks, lowering those risks over a period of time. Thank you, Sunil.
Thanks, Maria. So that's a really good points on kind of establishing a governance framework. And true, right? I mean, you would have to take it, the cloud setup as your own data center, how you would kind of establish a really strong compliance and security policy around it. So coming to the next question, right, Tejas, how are you overcoming the compliance challenges, security challenges in a multi-cloud setup?
See, one thing, the primary aspect was to do a consolidation. So initially, when we started, it was local server. We had multi-cloud. We had one of the service provider hosting our server. Then we had one cloud. It was in parts and pieces. So one thing which we came up as a long-term solution is consolidation to come under a single umbrella, so that everything which, as a point of view, if let's say if we want to implement any things in terms of any audit or something, we do not have to go to 3 different places. So obviously, one thing was to come under one umbrella, and then to look into the what all aspects which we can do as part of hygiene work. So let's say a basic thing like OS hardening, or maybe something like a policy which has to be published in the endpoints via some cloud security. So hygiene work was the second thing which we took as a priority, and we started working on it. One of the thing which I would like to highlight is the various, you can say, recommendations which obviously cloud as a service provider gives to you, that you can apply this as a part of solution to enhance your security skills. But at the end of the day, we need to ensure that which is best for your solution, because there are many third-party tools as well which we can embed it with our cloud service providers, which we are onto it. Obviously, the cloud guys will let you know that these are the native application, and you have to go for it. But at the end of the day, we will look into the 2 critical aspects like cost and the compliance. So that is the critical thing whenever you want to go for any security or any compliance point of view. And secondly, as a part of the listed company, we do follow many measures like ensuring we are followed and we are monitored by our regulators, by our management, by our auditors. So we ensure that regular audit happens twice a year. We ensure that whatever open points are there as part of vulnerability assessment audits are closed. So these are the 2, I think, major pillars which we look into and ensure that we keep on adding and we keep on building up a strong, you can say, foundation. And then on top of it, there is a cloud which comes up, and we ensure that all the client which has been published via cloud is secured. So I think this would be a 2 core areas which I, as a personally, I would like to mention.
Yeah, thanks, Jesus. So, Maria, you would like to chip in on the same?
Yeah, so I think the point which Tejas meant were perfectly aligned as to what a company should be able to do. And as a CIO, CTO for the organization, you should be driving the right matrices, right? The matrices are very important into running a cloud infrastructure. I mean, no 2 companies will have the same infrastructure. No 2 companies will have the same partners. And also the setups will also be different, right? Somebody would choose something else to be deployed on cloud. So I think the first question, if it is answered well, that you have to move to a cloud setup, then choose the right partner who could be aligned to your requirements. And don't look at commercials only a point of view in terms of engaging a partner. I feel that what you are going to deploy, what you are going to run, what you are going to support is something which is going to be very important in terms of running a multi-cloud strategy. There are certain decisions we also made in terms of moving towards critical infrastructure onto cloud. And today the benefits are that we are proud to say that we are there. But those are planned inputs, planned output in terms of moving towards that setup with a partner who understands our pain, and not necessarily you can do it alone. So I feel that if you also choose a right partner who's going to work with you into moving towards this particular strategy, because the multi-cloud arena is started becoming complex in terms of understanding. There is a lot of guidance that you can take from a third party who will be able to understand your problem, understand the cloud infrastructure more in detail. Because today time is essence, right? If you're sitting in your own seat and running the company for a cloud setup, you don't necessarily get the time to run the whole infrastructure yourself. You need to have a partner constituency in your game plan of running the multi-cloud setup.
I completely agree with that, Maria. In fact, you need to have really strong partners in all the areas to support your multi-cloud strategy, because a lot of times the the original cloud providers, right, they may not have the bandwidth, and you need to have even local partners who are with your team, right? Because usually when you're doing the adoption, your team may not have the complete know-how. So it's good to kind of have really strong, competent partners. And I also agree that the cost should not be the only factor, but it is also the scalability and the support which they can provide. Right? Awesome. So moving ahead, right? So once we have implemented, right, it's very important and pertinent that you are kind of having a constant and consistent visibility on the cloud resources. So Maria, how are you kind of achieving the same? And are there any tools which you're using to kind of provide you good visibility?
Yeah, so I run on a private cloud setup, and the private cloud operator has provided with me a wonderful tool that I can operate on. The tool basically is not just to monitor the threshold in terms of latency, in terms of my performance of the servers, my disk space utilizations. It's just not that. I think upscale, downscale is also one of the areas which is very, very important if you're looking at payload manageability on these tools. Number three, the visibility should be in such a way that probably it should go into detailed analysis of your infrastructure setup. So I would say that your port setups, your IP level configurations, your operating system based software, it goes in then, yes, if I can continue talking about. So that type of visibility should be available. And today we find that that type of visibility has been operating with global SaaS-based products. But today private companies are also scaling up to provide these services. These tools are a must-have, I would say. And if you look at operating on a multi-cloud services, then it becomes more complicated how to set this up. So if you look at the market today, there are n number of products which are already available. If you talk about Google, there's a Google Compute Engine which is available. Then there is Omnitsa, Utho, CloudKeeper, and various, I can keep on naming it. But when you acquire these tools, then you need to configure your APIs with the various multi-cloud operators. And that is the challenge which comes into the picture. So today, I would not know if there's any skill sets available in this market area. But especially when I look at Google, I feel there are a lot of skill sets locally available, and they can be configured to help you perform better, to make the right decisions. And today, what is commonly used is pay and use, right? Pay for what you use and do not pay for your resources which is not utilized, which is very, very important. But the most impactful point is that how to monitor this, that you don't pay more out of this setup. So that control is also one of the most important things to set up. Now, when you look at a comparison between a private and a public cloud setup would be having a lot of expertise in terms of products that can be plugged into your platforms which you're already operating on cloud. This could be on security, this could be on analytics, this could be on n number of things. And these tools, basically, when you compare with the private cloud setup, will necessarily not be there. So I feel that one way there is an opportunity if you can manage properly on a public cloud setup. And if you monitor, you can really make a good value on a public cloud setup versus a private cloud setup. But I would let that decision be done by the person as a CIO, CTO for that organization who understands his requirement, his industry, and then suggest and picks the right solution. And that solution, when he picks, he should have a checklist to understand that what he has chosen, he will be able to sustain, manage better, and upscale. Thank you, Sunil.
Thanks, Maria. So, Tejas, you would like to kind of add on that? What has been your experience?
See, basically, I would like to know that, see, as a multi-cloud, one thing which I initially said that consolidation is one thing, but as an organization, any organization, we keep on, I think most of the organization do has SaaS-based products available. It could be O365 or it could be any third-party software for our organization like HRMS, whatever. So now my point is, let's say if they are on not our service provider, they could be on their service provider. So maintaining their security is one of the aspect which we ask them as a security check, as what all things do you follow, or what is the checklist that you follow, and ensuring that our data is safe. So one thing is our premises, our cloud, and our application, which is one thing which we ensure that it is in place, and we do a health check, we take out the reports by our tool. But most importantly, which I feel that the SaaS based product, which currently we have a couple of them, they host on their environment and we don't have much visibility. So obviously a tool should be there wherein, let's say, we integrate our all applications, and that should be also provision wherein that application is integrated with various parameters which we want to observe. They will definitely have some restriction that we cannot allow, we cannot get them exposed to your thing. But as a data which we share with them, that is one aspect which we has to ask as a compliance, that what all things are you on, and what all the securities as a service provider you are giving it apart from the application security. That is one thing which I wanted to highlight. Yes. So
Good point, Tejas, right? I mean, I think that has been a challenge for most of the CIOs. How do you kind of take care of some of the SaaS products which are pay as you go, and you have the ownership? Okay, that's perfect. And now coming to the next point, right? Once you have kind of moved to multi-cloud, how do you kind of do the cost optimization? Because once you have migrated, once you have implemented, right? So what are the strategies? What is your experience in optimizing cost and resource allocation for the multi-cloud setup?
see, one thing which we have recently experienced is obviously the skills. See, the internal talent scale or the resource which we have should be very skilled enough to ensure that whatever services which we are enabled are in use or not. So currently, if you see in our recent use case, we had seen the utilization gone way high. We then raised to our partner saying that what is the issue. Then they came up saying that this was the unwanted services which we started. We then highlighted to the service provider saying that how come this could be issue. So obviously one is the alerts and mechanisms and tools which we put in, and there are many security companies or the companies which are specially on this. They are giving a tool and they are guaranteeing saying that, okay, we will cost optimize you by a minimum 10 to 20%. So we are exploring that option as well. But the core thing should be our resource should be in and out, should be knowing what all things are there, what all things are not in use. Should we switch on, which should we do a auto scheduling of auto server of VMs or whatever. So one thing which I definitely feel is the partner which we choose should be very much skill effective in terms of monitoring or whatever SLA we look into. And second thing is our in-house resource, which should be capable enough to highlight what all issues he has seen and he's been highlighting to the service provider. Obviously, then the core service provider will come in picture saying that this was not in use, or this is the unwanted services that you are using and we will remove it. But these two skills, internal as well as partner skills, is very much important for this optimization point of view.
What I've also observed is in, especially in the public cloud, right? A lot of companies, they do lift and shift, right? So you will have to actually use native APIs and native architecture to reduce cost, because that's usually the last. And as we said, the resourcing is a challenge because it's a very niche skill to kind of get the cost optimization, and not many people are there available. Whereas you have a lot of folks who could kind of help you to migrate. But
so the only point which I was trying to highlight is obviously the internal skills would be a challenge. That's why we look into the CSP model. So cloud service provider model, wherein let's say we give to one of the company and they are expertise into multi-tenant cloud like Azure, AWS, Google, and we ensure that whatever cloud we go into, they have multiple resources and they will look into it. So that is one of the point which we should definitely keying, and we should look for the best service provider.
Right. So what are your thoughts, Mariar, on the same?
Yeah, on the point which was discussed earlier, I think the services, whatever we take, whether it is from a SaaS operator or from a private service operator, everything is crystal clear. Only thing is we don't read them. When you operate with a SaaS service provider, you have something called EULA, end user license agreement. When you operate with a private service provider, you have an MSA or master service agreement. All details are mentioned in that. So when you go through it, you will come to know what is covered, what is not covered. The only point that is taken for granted is that our understanding and our misconception that yes, this will also be covered in cloud. But you don't go and discuss the details. If it is not mentioned in the EULA or the MSA, you need to find out those details with the service provider. They will exactly tell you this is covered, this is not covered. But the point is you don't have the time. That is why the cloud service players come into picture. And then they guide you in terms of their understanding, which is more better. So I think it's a matter of understanding, not taking for granted, using the right resources and the people who know this area very well. So in our status also, situations also, certain things we did the mistake and we learned it better. So what I'm trying to tell you is that revisit these points. When you implement the multi-cloud setups, your understanding with whom you are tying up, what you are signing up for as terms and conditions should be absolutely clear. Otherwise, you don't engage with that party. Right? It's an agreement, normal agreement for any situation. For cloud also it is that. So I think that is one of the points that we should keep in our mind, that things will be known to you when you engage. And that is taken for granted in our point of view. So the other point which is very, very important is that knowing that you have looked at a cloud service operators, commercial play a very big role. And commercial negotiations happen. It's hard to negotiate better or to pay more, right? Either ways, if you look at it. So we have chosen to do the later beforehand, so that we don't come up with surprises. And ultimately, if you know an engagement that what works better for you, whether a yearly contract works better for you or a pay and use contract works better for you, it is important to see that you engage that way. So that is one of the situations that I would advise, that you choose the right bucket of a situation. So you then look at it as used for a year and then again renegotiate it. So some of these products are yearly products, right? So you pay and use yearly products. You see that this usage is not there, don't renew the next year, or you pay less the next year. So I think that is something which is very important. The other thing is, even if you are operating on a multi-cloud large global setups, today their presence is available in India. I feel that if you are a CIO who understands that very well and has the connects, please connect with two parties. One is the direct OEM partner, and the second one is the OEM service provider themselves. So what will happen is you will get the complete flavor of the whole situation happening, and connect with them separately so that nobody can take you for a ride. So these are some of the things we ourselves have been doing. In fact, we are one of the few logistics service providers who have been operating financial management completely on cloud, on Oracle platforms. Recently, we have implemented. And we are proud to say that we operate with X number of users with a complete accounting and finance requirement. So, Sunil, I think the point is that it's in your hand how to do it. And the last part probably is to look at not acting like an actor, but act like an entrepreneur. So if you know that you have your purses tight, then your spends can always be controlled. Your budgets can always be looked at in terms of budgeting more, spending less. Yeah.
And what I've observed is once you kind of tie up with one partner, right, you already have invested So it's better to go for a long-term strategy and kind of discuss all the modalities, right? How it will pan out over the next 3 to 5 years, because sometimes you may have to change the service provider depending upon the use case as well, and automatically you would have a multi-cloud establishment which is kind of built in. So take care of that.
I agree, Sunil. So only point is, let's say whenever we start, we tend to have a long-term relationship with one service provider. But whenever we have a growth in terms of new projects or new application, then we have multiple options. And then in that case, we try to have a multi-cloud options wherein who is giving best. And then the comparison comes, and then we go for this multi-cloud whole environment. So I agree with you. Yes.
Correct. It is also in favor, right? Sometimes, because then you have the bargaining power, because depending upon how the different service providers provide the competency, then you can kind of decide and take it from there. But what I've seen is it's good to have an abstraction layer before you connect to the cloud infrastructure. That helps you to kind of toggle pretty easily. Otherwise, it will be a very difficult move. Sure. Right. Okay, so that's good. And Tejas, I mean, are you using any automation tool for kind of streamlining the cloud governance, or?
So currently we are in talks with many service providers, including the OEM itself, and we have shortlisted a couple of them. Obviously, we are looking in many sort of automation in terms of central dashboard, alert mechanisms. But since we are still in early stage, but that is one of the focus point in coming years, and definitely we'll look into and explore. We'll speak to many our partners saying that which is the best for our environment, and then we'll go accordingly. But as of now, we are in a very early stage.
Okay, great. I think I've covered most of the questions. This has been a really interesting session. Thanks, Mirya and Tejas, for your time. And kind of look forward to getting the feedback. So thank you all.
Thank you, Salim.
For more updates from CXOTV, please like and subscribe to our channel.